And Watty Grahams Glen will face up against Roscommon and Connacht champions St. Brigid's in the final. Now, this scoreline a little bit flattering because Castlehaven were 1 point behind them going into the final couple of minutes. Brigid's managed to pull clear with a couple of last-ditch scores. Brigid's completely shut off in the second half. And I remember I said this to you, they did their dirty lifting in the first half. Like at half-time, they were 4 points clear. Castlehaven roared back into the contest. It took Brigid's 17 minutes in the second half to get a score. And Castlehaven were very much on top, and they missed some crucial chances. And the first one I'm going to say is Rory Maguire hitting the crossbar. If that goes in, we might be talking about Glen Castlehaven.
And what was significant about that, actually, if Rory Maguire converted that, Castlehaven would have led for the first time in that game.
Yeah.
And it was a huge chance miss, it really was. And Rory Maguire's had a brilliant year. Again, he had a stellar game now today again, as he always does. He's a brilliant player for Cork and Castlehaven. But, and this isn't just Rory Maguire, it's players up and down the country that I'm thinking of in those sorts of situations. I don't know, do you notice this, Seamus? But players in them sort of situations tend to blast the ball rather than place it.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just a rush of blood to your head. I don't know why you players
I just think it's the moment. The moment probably gets to you and you're thinking, oh my God, I have such a good chance. And like the history and everything like that. You're not exactly going to lob it over the goalkeeper.
No, you wouldn't have the confidence to do that, especially when you're losing in a game like that.
Yeah.
I think like the best thing probably to do in that situation is to just place it into the bottom corner where the goalkeeper it's delayed for him to get down on the ground. Whereas if it's up high, the goalkeeper is in a stellar position or it rebounds off the bar. And that's what happened to Roy Maguire today, and it was a huge chance. And I think there was another goal chance you were mentioning, Jack Halland's in the first half as well. I think that was just a shot at the dark, to be honest with you. I think Jack was nearly tempted to go for a point. He was going for the goal at the end, and it just flashed off the post. And that was a big chance as well. And I think at that stage, Castlehaven could have had 1-1, and they could have been level with BRIGIDS. And those small moments in the games, and even Brian Hurley had an outstanding game today, 7 points. But there was a stage in the game, he had 2 45s in a row and missed both.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, when it's not your day, it's just not your day. And Castlehaven had a brilliant year. They've had an outstanding year, but it's just those missed opportunities. I know Brigid's actually had more wides than Castlehaven. Look at the stats there. But Castlehaven probably had bigger, better opportunities than Brigid's. And they just didn't take them. And it was just unfortunate from a Cork point of view and a Castlehaven point of view that they didn't take them. And they had a brilliant year, as I mentioned. They weren't particularly good in their shooting against Dingle either, but they got away with it, obviously, with that heroic display in Limerick. Today, they showed a lot of guts, Castlehaven, but they came up against a Brigid side, and we're going to mention the first half, I'm sure, later on in the chat. Brigid's were absolutely superb in that first half. Everything that they kicked went over the bar. And they were just having those sorts of days. And what was incredible to me, Ben O'Carroll has been a brilliant forward for Brigid's on this run. 7 goals, 29 points. He's been absolutely incredible in his own right. He only scored 2 points in that first half. Mm-hmm. Whereas I think Bobby Nugent scored 3 or something like that. Brian Durman got 1-1. And other players around him were stepping up. And Brian Stack as well, going in from defence to attack as well at certain stages. Eddie Nolan, Conor Hand, Kieran Sugru, they all chipped in at different stages of the game. And that was probably another key difference between the sides. Like when you look at overall different scores, Brigid's had a total of 7 different scores. Castlehaven had 3. And ultimately, that was the difference between the two sides. Brigid's had other players other than Ben O'Carroll that could step up. Castlehaven, other than Brian Hurley, didn't have enough, unfortunately, to get over the line today.
Yeah, and look, Brian Hurley was amazing. Like he very much carried the fight to St. Brigid's. There was one point he got in I think it was the first half. Yeah, it was the first half where I think he had about 4 Brigid's lads around them. And in the 1 second of space that he had, he slotted it over the bar. Like he's a fantastic forward. He was brilliant. I don't think Michael Hurley was 100% fit. He didn't look himself out there today. He missed a couple of chances that he usually slots away. He only scored 1 point. He missed one shot in particular in the second half where you'd put your house in him to get it. It's one of those where I think Castlehaven will sit there tonight now, and they'll think, God, that feels like we've left that behind us. Like when you think about the Maguire hitting the crossbar, there was a route there for them to win that game. But at the same time, if you were Jerome Stack, you'd be sitting there thinking, we were comfortable at halftime. What the hell happened in the third quarter that we just forgot how to play football? All of a sudden, there was no sign of Ben O'Carroll. There was no sign of Bobby Nugent. There was no sign of Brian Derwin, who got whipped off pretty soon after that. All of a sudden, they were getting bossed around the middle. Castlehaven were on top, and they were lucky that Maguire missed that shot. Because I feel like if Rory Maguire sticks that in the net, Castlehaven go ahead for the first time, it would have given them a real shot in the arm. Instead, Brigid's got a little bit of momentum. Robbie Dolan hit the point in the 47th minute, which was their first point of the second half. That was crucial for them. There were crucial scores. Then John Cunningham's, I thought, was vital. Then Paul McGrath gets one, which pretty much sealed it. And then the penalty, Ben O'Carroll belts it over instead of going for the goal, which I don't really know. Like, if you're trying to, like, I get the whole sealing it, slotting it over the bar and everything like that. But it's interesting. But as a spectacle, I would have liked to have seen him go for the goal. But probably the right decision in the end. But the point I'm making is, in that third quarter, while they were amazing in the first half, they were doing nothing in the third quarter.
They weren't, no. And while you're on the Ben O'Carroll point, I'd agree with what Ben O'Carroll actually did. And what it did, it got them in front by 4 points, and that meant Castlehaven were completely and utterly dead. Yeah. That was game over, game, set, and match. And I think he did the right thing there, Ben O'Carroll. He could have easily gone for the goal, could have gone for the glory, but no, puts the ball over the bar. Like a brilliant player he is, and the smart player he is, in fairness to put it over the bar. But BRIGIDS in that third quarter, it was like every shot they nearly put over in the first half. I think they got their first wide in the 24th, 25th minute. And then the second half, every shot they took in the third quarter, particularly, every shot went wide. And you're thinking, what is going on here? I was there in certainly Semple Stadium today. There didn't seem to be a wind. So you're wondering, how could their fortunes in shooting change so drastically in one half?
Yeah.
Or between two halves of between the first half and the second half. I think it was just remarkable in its own right. Ben O'Carroll wasn't really getting the sniff, as you mentioned there. Bobby Nugent was hitting shots wide. Brian Derwin hit a few wide, and Conor Hand had a chance as well. Like, there was a few snatched efforts that they could have easily put over, and they weren't just speculative efforts. They were easy efforts that they were putting over in the first half. Yeah. And you were thinking, how? Like, Castlehaven have a real chance here, and like that Maguire chance, I think will haunt Castlehaven. And we mentioned during the week, actually, would they have a chance like this again? You're thinking the Nemo and the Bars or any other team like that in Cork could challenge Castlehaven again next year. And that's a possibility. So this was a huge chance for them to get to an All-Ireland final. They have never won an All-Ireland semi-final. And I think James McCarthy was speaking to Tommy Rooney from off the ball at the end of the game about the cursed woodwork. And it was coincidentally the same woodwork, the same goal actually, which Aaron Zoyle scored into for that goal in 1997. It's unreal. It's so nice. And James McCarthy, the ghost goal, exactly what sparked Harry Redknapp, John Luca Vialli, on the AIB, brilliant documentary. But James McCarthy was saying to Tommy Rooney, it was just a coincidence. It's more than that, in my opinion. It has to be something with that goal. I
wonder, did they laugh when they seen the venue? I get that they knew that they would be shooting into that goal at some point of the game.
Yeah, I think they would have chosen, but at the same way, they were shooting into one goal in one game in this year, and they were shooting into the opposite goal in 1997. Yeah. And both times they were kind of done.
Yeah, so maybe it's just the pitch. Maybe it's just the whole stadium that doesn't agree with them. But the thing is, it fair to say this? I thought the key score was John Cunningham's. I thought that one was the one where I was like, okay, that's a massive score. Because I think Castlehaven were 1 point behind. Cunningham put them, I think it was back 2 in front. Led to Castlehaven chasing the goal instead of an equaliser. And then that's when BRIGIDS were able to get their third from Paul McGrath. And led to then, the penalty and everything like that. Led to the frantic ending that we had, led to Castlehaven having to go for the goal. And with the attacks that they had, they easily could have got 2 points or a couple of points. So it's like that score for me is the one that was the separator.
Yeah, and I think that was badly needed. That was actually, I think it was Brigid's second point of the second half. John Cunningham's vital, absolutely vital. I actually think Cunningham's might have sealed it, but I think the most vital score, in my opinion, was Robbie Dolan's, the first score of the second half, because it settled Brigid's down. It got them going again, and they went from there to the finish, and they finished out the game really, really well. Up until then, you were fans. I was thinking in my head then, Castlehaven have Brigid's here, because Bridges are kicking wide after wide after wide. Castlehaven are gaining more and more confidence. And once Robbie Dolan gets that point, Castlehaven are like, oh, they're going up again. The confidence is up again. And I think it kind of, knocked Castlehaven back a bit, and then it pushed Bridges on towards victory. So I think it was Robbie Dolan's point. John Cunningham's was an excellent point as well, and so was Paul McGrath's in their own right. It pushed them even further ahead. And it made Castlehaven panic even more, because Bridges, once they got to 2 points, once they got to 3 points, Castlehaven started doing things that were kind of un-Castlehaven-like, if you like. Mm-hmm. Because I think it was one incident late on in the half. I think it was, I don't know who passed the ball to Colin Maguire now, but he passed it over his head and to the sideline. And you could see the frustration on the Castlehaven players there. And it was just like, this is not going to be our day. And then I think Bridges get the ball, go down the other end, win the penalty over the bar for Ben O'Garl. And ultimately, that was the game over then. But I think ultimately, the more scores went on the board, as Robbie Dolan's score went on, John Cunningham's, Paul McGrath's, I think that score by score, Castlehaven got to get even more panicked after that. And it made them do things that were they wouldn't normally do them in the Cork Championship or the Munster Championship. And yeah, ultimately, I think Robbie Dolan's point got them going, Bridges, in the second half, because in that third quarter, they were shallow what they were in the first half.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like they definitely just had a slump in that third quarter. The Robbie Dolan point was crucial, because it just kind of, okay, now you've scored in the second half. That's a bit of a relief. You're up and running now for the half. And when the Cunningham shot went over, it felt like Castlehaven had missed the boat a little bit when it came to the momentum. That like, oh, you really had them there in that 10 minutes and you didn't make as much hay as you potentially could have. Like, you didn't get the goal from Rory Maguire, which that could have really put them on the back foot, even more so than they already were. It felt like Brigid had kind of dodged the bullet there, and then they push on for the win, which obviously now, like, to remind you all of it, the two results, massive congratulations to both these sides. Glen beating Kilmacud Crokes, and then Brigid's beating Castlehaven. They're into the final against each other. It's the first time ever that St. Brigid's will face Watty Grahams Glen in the All-Ireland Club final. I'd be interested to know if they have actually ever played against each other before in club championship football, or if this is an inaugural pairing. I don't actually know that. But your first thoughts now on this pairing. What was your first thoughts when Glen got the victory and you knew it would be Glen versus Brigid's in that final?
I think even before Kilmacud and Watty Grahams Glen, I was thinking the winners of this will win the All-Ireland.
Yeah.
And even looking at the game, I think Brigid's, they've done really, really well in fairness to them. They beat Corfin, they beat a tough Castlehaven side, but that third quarter for Brigid's today probably epitomised, are they All-Ireland winning material? I know Watty Grahams Glen had a slump in that second half against Kilmacud, but in fairness, in the first 10 minutes of that second half, they had Kilmacud on the ropes.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, and maybe they just start off thinking, we've won the game here. And there's a difference here. Brigid's were 4 points up at half time. It was still in the melting pot. We all know what Castlehaven are like in coming back into the game. And Brigid's somehow allowed Castlehaven back into the game. And Rory, if he gets that goal, we could be talking about Castlehaven here. So, like, I just feel Glen have the upper hand at Bridges. When you look at the teams, I think when you look at the mentality of both teams, when you look at the Jerome Stack is a very good manager, but Malachy O'Rourke is one of the best managers in the country.
Yeah.
And I just feel that Watty Grahams Glen have the upper hand in going on to win it. And I will say this, Seamus, I did say from the very start of the club championship back in, I'd say July, August, Watty Grahams Glen will win the All-Ireland. I think I'm hoping actually, because I'm hoping one of my predictions for once is actually going to be right. And I think I could be right in this. I'm very, very confident that Watty Grahams Glen will win this. But BRIGIDS, they've had a very, very good year in fairness to them. But I just think this final step is just a bit too far.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And look, while I highlighted when we were talking about the Glen Kilmacud game, while I highlighted that both of them dropped off massively in the second half at stages, I think, and look, I don't have the figures and the stats and all to back this up, but I felt from watching both games that Castlehaven's comeback into the game was also helped by the fact that BRIGIDS all of a sudden couldn't kick snow off a rope. But also, when you flip it to the other side, I don't think Glen all of a sudden started playing badly. I just think Kilmacud Crokes hit a purple patch and went on a run. Glen still were creating attacks and still were scoring in Crokes' purple patch. For a while, BRIGIDS didn't look like they were going to score. 17 minutes in the second half, they went without it. If you do that against Glen, it's done. So look, I think, BRIGIDS will be happy in the position that they're in. They're going into this final as complete underdogs. Nobody thinks they're going to beat Glen in that final. And to be honest, I think Glen are going to beat them in the final as well. I think it's Glen's time. It feels like that. It feels like they've bided their time. And interestingly, that would be the third year in a row now that the defeated finalists from the year previous has come back and won the All-Ireland the year after that. Kilmacud Crokes. Will Watty Grahams Glen make it 3 in a row? It's been a hell of a weekend. I mean, 2 absolutely cracking All-Ireland club semi-finals. Myself and Matthew have gone through them. Just to remind you of the results one more time. Watty Grahams Glen beat Kilmacud 114 to 210. And St. Brigid's beat Castlehaven by 111 to 10 points. So that is the All-Ireland Club Football Semi-Finals for 2023/2024. We now have our final 2. It will be St. Brigid's from Roscommon against Watty Grahams Glen from County Derry in the All-Ireland Club Football Final. Thank you so much to Matthew for coming on. Thank you so much to anyone who tuned into the video over the hour. Until the next episode, guys, here on Cluiche, take care.